The views and opinions expressed on the Veterans in Politics show and podcast are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Net Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.
Well, this is Steve Sanson and Jim Jonas for Veterans in Politics. We have two guests today. The first guest is going to be Deanna Wisner, who's a community activist. We're going to talk about the Clark County Metropolitan Police Department and the District Attorney's Office. And then we have Carla Williams, who's an advertising accountant for Executive and Las Vegas Women. Jim, what's going on, brother?
Oh, not much, Steve. How's things been going this week for you?
Oh, it's been very interesting.
Well, it's nice to be sitting in the studio with a celebrity.
Really?
You know you're a celebrity now, right, Steve?
No, I'm not a celebrity.
Yeah, you are. You just called for the sheriff of the Metropolitan Police Department to step down.
Well, you know what? A lot of people thought about doing that, and nobody has actually publicly done it. I mean, I've heard people talk about it and whispering and murmuring, but nobody actually sent out a press release and that I know of and put it in front of a TV camera.
So that's one of the things that I admire the most about you, and one of the reasons why I am a member of Veterans of Politics Auxiliary Board member is because when something needs to be done, Steve, you have the guts to actually stand up and say things that a lot of people are thinking, but they don't necessarily do it.
Well, I don't know if you might call it guts or insanity, because he is the head of the police force,
right? And
I don't know. So if I get set up and I get pulled over for any stupid thing, I didn't really do it,
right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's so much that. I just think that one of the important things is that if you believe in something, actually standing up for it is a good thing. And I think that's something that we're missing in today's society. And all of your hard work with the community and stuff is paying off.
Well, I sure hope so, because have you taken a look at the video with the shooting?
Yeah, actually I did, and thanks to you, you're the one that sent it to me. I mean, me personally, we have interviewed a former someone who ran against Doug Gillespie for sheriff this last time, and I'm not going to name that person's name.
Lori Bish, everybody knows who ran against
but
him.
I asked Lori when she was on the show, I said, why do you think that there is so many officer-involved shootings that tend to take place with younger officers? And she said, basically, Jim, it's training.
I believe what I was told is that the lack of training came out of the 2005 Academy when the new initiative to ask for that, I think, 0.25% sales tax to bring new officers on board. But you know something, Jim, I don't know who has command of a scene once there's a situation that's being unfolded, right? Because apparently everybody wants to give verbal commands, and if you were a potential suspect, so to speak, who are you going to take commands from? The officer that's yelling at it 5 feet away, the officer that's yelling at it 10 feet away? Who are you supposed to take command? One officer says, get on the ground. Another officer says, put your hands up. Another officer says, turn around. Another officer says, get against the wall. That's a little bit confusing in a situation like that.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I just keep going back to the training issue. Who should you take command from? I've never met Doug Gillespie. I've never met him. I don't know what his pedigree is or anything like that. It's just, the buck stops at the top.
Exactly.
And then another analogy that I use at work a lot is fish stinks from the head to the tail. So I know when one of my team members, and I'm not in law enforcement, but one of my team members do something incorrectly, and I'm called on the carpet for it, or I don't blame them. I blame me.
Exactly. Well, leadership should start at the top. I mean,
exactly.
Good leadership should start at the top. I believe that the sheriff should stop hiding behind his folks at the bottom, so to speak, and start taking leadership for his own actions, because he's not.
Right.
Look, remember that one time that that one officer was speeding down Rainbow, no emergency lights, no headlights, no sirens, excessive speed, not wearing a seatbelt, rammed into that truck. What did Doug Gillespie did? He went on the media, put this guy's face all across the media, and saying that this drunk driver killed this cop, when the guy wasn't even drunk.
Right.
Rush to judgment. Look what he did in this one particular case with Stanley Gibson. He said that he was ramming his car into a police cruiser, and the officers acted in self-defense, which after video shows that wasn't true.
Right.
And then I'm listening to an interview on the Heidi Harris show, one of the detectives that came on there, and he says that the officer must have shot into the car because when the beanbag hit the window, the glass hit the officer, so he think that there's a gun. Now, let me ask you something. What's wrong with that is if the glass could fly and hit that officer, that officer failed to do what? Take proper precautions into keeping a safe distance from the suspect.
Yeah.
And so that justifies him to pump 7 bullets into the back of the guy. That's a coward.
Yeah.
Who shoots somebody in the back?
Right.
Who shoots somebody in the back? Speaking of shooting somebody in the back, remember that other that murder suspect that was cuffed behind his back and managed to get out of the police car and was running away from the officer, and the officer shot him in the back while he was cuffed? Things like that makes me think, what the hell is going on? How is that justified? Just because they got a goddamn badge that gives them the right to execute people, and that's justified? And then they say, well, you know what? You don't understand what's going on. You weren't there. But look, I've been in hostile situations before. I had guns drawn on me. I've been in firefights before. What the hell are they talking about? And if I was to shoot somebody in the back, I would be accused of murder.
Right. Well, and this goes exactly to what you're talking about, Steve, is that the lack of training on Doug Gillespie's part or the Metropolitan Police Department as a whole, when situations like this occur and they execute someone, and I consider this an execution, okay? They execute somebody wrongly, that puts a black cloud over the entire police department, and that is unfair to those individuals that would have acted in an appropriate manner if they had the proper training.
Exactly.
So now that's exactly why certain individuals, me included, don't trust the police.
No.
So that is exactly why we need better training, and someone like Doug Gillespie, in my opinion, should step down, because he has put a black light on his entire department now, and the citizens do not feel as though the cops are there to protect them, which is exactly what the cops are there to do. So in my opinion, I think that it would be the right thing for him to do, to step down, because he has not held up his end of the bargain. So now if citizens don't trust police, then who do they trust? They trust drug dealers and other individuals to protect them, and that's one of the main reasons why we have the crime that we have, in not just in Las Vegas, but just in general.
Right. I mean, look at the Eric Scott incident, the Costco shooting with that young Army officer.
Right.
And there was multiple stories about that. Okay. And one of the stories I heard is that one officer was telling him to get down. Another officer told him to hand over his weapon. So apparently what I was told is that he was handing over his weapon and it was still in the holster when he got shot.
Right.
So they yelled gun. And what happens when they yell gun? Then everybody starts firing.
Right.
I thought they got rid of the firing squad. Didn't they get rid of the firing squad? I thought it was lethal injection now.
Yeah, I mean, typically it's lethal injection. There are a few states that.
So let me get this straight. That means when one officer fires his weapon, right, that's a green light for every single other officer that have their weapons drawn to go ahead and fire it. And if you don't have your weapon drawn, draw your weapon and start firing and join the party at the same time. Yeah. Is that how it's supposed to work? What happened to one shot, one kill?
Right. Well,
but they're not even supposed to kill. They're supposed to protect and serve. Isn't that the oath that they took? Protect and serve the public, and that you're innocent until proven guilty. I thought that's how the Constitution was written.
Yeah, it is.
But I don't know. I don't know, because this whole thing is just pissing me off. But you know what? Let's watch this. Let's put this video on that Channel 13 air, and then we'll come back to it.
New information tonight on the deadly police shooting of a burglary suspect. Today, Metro released the names of the 2 officers, along with a sergeant and a lieutenant who were involved. Sources inside the department tell Action News that both senior officers have been relieved of duty, but we have not received confirmation from official Metro sources. The fallout from the shooting death of the war veteran continues tonight, and one group is calling for Sheriff Doug Gillespie to step down. Action News reporter Marco Villarreal is joining us live with more on that. Marco.
Steve, we're told the man that was shot by police on Monday had post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's why one group is asking the sheriff to step down for not having trained his officers to deal with veterans that are struggling with PTSD and having episodes. Veterans in Politics, a political advocate group for veterans, is speaking out after the shooting death of Gulf War veteran Stanley Gibson. Officers responded to a possible break-in at the Alondra condominiums Monday morning when Gibson returned to the complex in his car. Sources inside Metro tell Action News that commanding officers decided to shoot beanbags at his car to coax him out. We're told Jesus Arevalo, one of the officers identified by Metro today, seems to have reacted to the first beanbag shot and fired 7 rounds from his rifle into the back window, killing Gibson. While those officers involved are on paid administrative leave, Veterans in Politics wants more from Sheriff Gillespie.
And I believe the sheriff has failed the Metropolitan Police Department. He has failed the citizens of this community. When is enough? This is the second veteran that was executed by Metro Police Department.
And this organization also warns that as veterans start coming back from foreign wars, there may be more trouble ahead if we don't learn how to deal with veterans that are struggling with PTSD. Now, late this afternoon, we did confirm that the NAACP and the ACLU are calling for a federal investigation of Metro. That's the latest. Reporting live, Marco Villarreal, Channel 13, Action.
Now, in that press release that we send out, we asked for a federal investigation because I think that it's a conflict of interest for the district attorney's office to investigate the Metropolitan Police. That's like me investigating you. I'm not going to find nothing wrong with you.
Right.
You know, what the hell is that? I mean, both of them are joined to the hip to put people behind bars because cops' job is to arrest and the district attorney's job is to prosecute.
Right.
So aren't they on the same team?
Yeah, they are.
So why is the DA's office investigating police shootings for? That should turn over to a federal investigation or the AG's office at the very least.
Right.
You know, or bring some other cops. Well, maybe you shouldn't, I guess, bring any cops involved because there's a brotherhood of cops out there no matter what state you belong to anyway. So that's probably unjust. But the DA should not investigate police shootings. I am sorry. And that coroner's inquest that they have, that's laughable. Yeah. I don't care what they do with it. I think the coroner's inquest is just to appease the public, to say, hey, we did something. That's like you have a cancer and you put a Band-Aid on the goddamn thing. You need to cut the damn cancer out. That's doing something. That coroner's inquest is a joke, and it's always a joke because everybody's justifiable. Shooting somebody in the back, that's justifiable. Doing whatever you want, that's justifiable. The Travis Cole thing, shot the guy in the face in bed. Oh, that's justifiable. Let me try that. What are they going to do with me? Prosecute me for murder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just don't understand, Jim. I think this whole thing is a joke. But you know what? You want to take a break, or you got something else to say? Then we get on.
No, I think we need to. Let's go ahead and take a break and get to our guests.
Well, we're going to take a break, folks. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jones for Veterans in Politics, talking about the injustice with the Metropolitan Police Department. And we'll be back with Deanna Wisner. Hope I pronounced that. Wisner? She'll correct me.
She's on microphone right now. Go ahead and correct him.
It's actually Deanne Wisner.
Deanne Wisner, community activist. And then, don't go away,
we'll be
folks.
right back.
This public service announcement is brought to you by Veterans in Politics International. The Veterans in Politics mission is to teach, educate, organize, and awaken our veterans and their families to select, support, and vote intelligently for a better world, and to protect ourselves from our own governments and a culture of corruption, and to be the political voice for those in other groups that do not have one.
There are too many homeless veterans, and more help is needed from the VA. Every Veterans Service Organization post should adopt a local homeless veteran.
The funding of VA medical centers is inadequate, and building a VA hospital in Southern Nevada is moving at a slow pace. The budget has been flatlined for too many years. The VA is too quick to deny claims and too slow to help veterans gather records in support of claims.
Local politicians ignore veterans and their issues. They perceive a lack of organization among their local veterans and that it won't hurt them at election time. Veterans too often vote party, not veteran issues. All veterans should vote in every election.
The news media give inadequate coverage to veteran issues and events. You must send letters to the editor and voice this concern.
Please contact your members of Congress and Senate and urge them to co-sponsor key legislation in supporting our veterans.
Please support Veterans in Politics. And to get more information, go to www.veteransinpolitics.com.
What are you doing online?
I'm checking out the belly dance class we took last week.
Where's it at?
TakeBackYourBelly.com.
That's right.
We worked our arms.
We worked our abs.
We worked so hard
and had a blast. No matter what your shape or size, come belly dance, you'll be surprised.
For class schedule and location, log on to TakeBackYourBelly.com or call 219-3151.
While growing up, I've always asked my family, who is my father? I was told the name of a man. When I became older, I looked for this man and found him. He thought that I was his son as well, but after a DNA test, it was discovered that my family was lying to me all my life. I pressured my family to give me the real identity of my father. I then became suspicious and took my grandfather's DNA. After I buried my grandfather, 2 days later I discovered that my grandfather was in fact my biological father. I questioned myself and asked, what is my purpose on this earth? I should have never been conceived. But when I look at my 4 children, I knew that everything happens for a reason. This is Steve Sanson. Find your identity.
Are you a business owner struggling during these economic times? Please listen up. How would you like to put your business and services in front of every resident and business in the Las Vegas Valley for less than a penny per home? Yes, that's right. I said less than 1 cent per home and business. And how would you like to have a dynamic and exciting online presence with the major search engines? How about an online video for your business and a fully optimized website with absolutely no setup fee? Hi, my name is George. If you are interested in these and other services that can make your phone ring with clients and prospects, then call me at 702-296-8394. Just call George at 702-296-8394. Thank you.
All right, great. Then it's a date. As Miss Nevada, my schedule can be really busy at times, but there is one activity I had to put on my calendar, and that's the Veterans Valentine Ball and Gala. February 11th is your chance to help local veterans meet with the state's dignitaries and feel the love for Valentine's Day. So bring your sweetheart down to the Plaza Hotel on February 11th at 5:30 p.m. for a dinner, dance, and silent auction. Visit veteransinpolitics.com by December 30th to purchase your tickets. I've got my date. Do you?
Well, we're back with Diane Wisner, who's a community activist, and we're going to be discussing the Clark County Metropolitan Police Department and the District Attorney's Office. Good afternoon, Diane.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me back.
I had to look at the clock because I wasn't sure if it was morning. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am a victim of domestic violence, and my daughter is a victim of domestic violence. We entered the Clark County court system through no fault of our own to get a protection order, only to find out years later that the photographs that were taken of batteries to me and batteries to my daughter were destroyed by the court, never entered into evidence, and never seen by the judge. My daughter was then court-ordered back to her abusers, and to this day, I continue fighting the courts with this injustice. We have networked, many of us mothers, because the same thing is happening to many mothers around the valley. And we have become a formidable foe, and the courts are retaliating against us at this point, but we do believe that we will have a voice, and it's shows like this that are helping us through social media to become aware of what is happening in the court system.
When you say these photos were missing, you know what that reminds me of? It sounds like the videotape that was missing at the Costco shooting.
Well, that videotape it's interesting you bring that up. Sharon Nelson is the attorney for Costco. She was the attorney in my divorce case, in my child abuse case, against the abusers of my child, obviously. And she actually filed a protection order in court. This is a court document filed in family court that my daughter and I have a protection order against Costco. I have no faith in the ability of Sharon Nelson, and I do believe that Costco will end up seeing the light in all of this, and I really do believe that the Scott family will get justice.
Deanne, can you define for the listeners what a community activist is, in your opinion?
Oftentimes, community activists, through a circumstance in their life, become passionate about their situation. That's how it started with me. Part of being a community activist is that we use whatever is available to us to get the message out when there is social injustice being done. And without the help of shows like this, without the help of people coming forward and saying the same thing happened to them, without the help of the public standing up and demanding people being accountable, such as Sheriff Gillespie, these social injustices go unnoticed.
So, Deanne, what's your main beef with Sheriff Gillespie?
Sheriff Gillespie has put into practice, policy, and procedure to not take police reports from certain persons with certain names. This started with Lieutenant Ben Kim in the Southwest Area Command turned Enterprise Area Command. And what Lieutenant Ben Kim did, he is now no longer with the force. He either was forced to resign or was fired. But his practice was to not allow us mothers with our abused children to come down to the station and to present criminal evidence of batteries to our children. And so when it started happening to many of us mothers, I actually at the time lived in Summerlin, and my neighbors, it was happening to them also. One neighbor was married to an FBI agent. My other neighbor was married to a Nevada Highway Patrol officer, both beaten, just as I was. And so we were concerned about the policies, practices, and procedures that are happening in these area commands. Sheriff Gillespie is the ultimate person responsible for that. But if anybody attempts to contact Sheriff Gillespie, he hides behind the people at the top. Under Sheriff Jett was the undersheriff. He's no longer with Sheriff Gillespie. And Assistant Sheriff McClary, he is no longer with the force. These are all people that protected Sheriff Gillespie, and the truth is not getting to him. And even if someone were able to find an email or to find out that Sheriff Gillespie knows the truth, he's not coming forward. it speaks to the integrity of the man.
Well, Deanne, real quick, Steve, sorry to interrupt you, but Deanne, do you think that one of the reasons why Sheriff Gillespie hasn't done enough in this case is because he, in fact, Metro has been called to his house 3 times for domestic violence?
Well, I know what my personal experience is with that. I have heard that same statement made. Of course, I wasn't there, so that would be an informative statement, but it would not be in a court of law. It would have to be treated as hearsay unless they got someone on the stand that knew of that. My experience, I hired a service to serve Sheriff Gillespie with papers, and he threw the papers, accepted the papers, threw the papers back at the server, and the server left. The server, I went down to the server's place of business the following morning and was told that they would no longer be serving Sheriff Gillespie. I do believe that there's intimidation that goes on. I believe that the violence that is existing within our community is incited by Sheriff Gillespie and his policies, practices, and procedures.
Well, you know something, Deanne, there's a lot of folks out there that's intimidated by the sheriff. And I just want to piggyback on what Jim just asked you about the domestic violence calls to Sheriff Gillespie's house. I remember when I was doing a radio show with Mike Wiley, and I asked, it was during the re-election for his seat as sheriff. He was running against Lori Bish in the general election. And I asked Sheriff Gillespie, well, first I made a statement that I had several calls from different Metropolitan police officers that stated to me that they showed up at Sheriff Gillespie's home on 2 separate occasions for a domestic violence call, and that they know that the sheriff blacking out the calls to his address because, you know, in Scope, when you pull it up, it shows how many times officers show up at the home. Well, they told me that the sheriff blacking that out. Either he did it himself or he had somebody do it for him. Well, I asked Sheriff Gillespie on the radio if that was true, and he said no. After the show was over, he told me that it was true, but the difference is that they came there for his daughter because his daughter had a altercation with her boyfriend and took his truck. But that statement alone didn't even make sense to me. And he said that in front of myself and Mike Wiley. Now, I know what I heard and I know what was said to me. If Mike is addressed with it, I don't know his position, if he would go ahead and actually back me up and say, yeah, that was true, or if the sheriff if the sheriff got to him before I get to him, then he might change his story. But really, the only thing that scares me is God. So if I die today or if I die tomorrow, I could say that I've lived my life. And it's just like a statement I said on Facebook. I'd rather be vocal, saying what's right and wrong and living my life than be silent and not saying a doggone thing. Because people that don't say things and don't stand up for the truth, those people are cowards. Those people hide behind rocks, and those people hide behind other folks. Folks, if you want the same thing to persist and you don't like it, you need to be vocal about it. If you stay silent, it's just going to keep happening over and over and over again. And it might not happen to you, but it might happen to your folks. Now, do I think Sheriff Gillespie is a bad person? I don't think I've spent enough time to really kind of put that together. But I think Sheriff Gillespie should step down as being the sheriff of the Metropolitan Police Department. And the answer to that question would be yes. And the reason why I say that is because I believe that he has failed his troops. He has failed his police officers, and he has failed the citizens of Clark County that he has sworn to protect and to serve. And when you lose that that leadership as to control your officers that you were entrusted to do, and control your administrative staff, and to protect and to serve the citizens of the county that you're sworn to protect, then you have to step down. Now, if Sheriff Gillespie does not step down on his own, then the Veterans in Politics is going to file a petition to have him step down, which it might be another special election, or it might be something. And I know that the NAACP and the ACLU has called for a federal investigation, and I know that the sheriff responded saying that bring it on. Basically, that's what he's saying without actually saying that. Apparently, he has nothing to hide. Of course, you have nothing to hide if you're going to cover everything up. Of course, you have nothing to hide if you're going to intimidate your officers and make them not speak out against you. Of course, you have nothing to hide if you're going to intimidate the community that you're sworn to protect. Why don't he tell everybody, you know what, say what you want and you'll face no repercussions, and see if you have nothing to hide. But go ahead, Jim.
No, Deanne.
That was my rant.
Could I just briefly comment?
Go right ahead.
Make two statements. I really appreciate what you said, Steve. That if we can't stand up to law enforcement, who is supposed to protect and serve us, then where do we go? What do we have? You mentioned at the top of the show that you fear retribution. I do agree that if there is retribution, we have experienced it. Us mothers have experienced it. Where our children are being continually reordered back to their abusers because Metro is their scope. The scope database is inaccurate information. It's falsified information, and that needs to be corrected.
So, Deanne, let me interrupt you real quick. I just want to play devil's advocate here for a minute. What actual proof do you have of that, though? I mean, we're. I'm not a huge fan of Sheriff Gillespie, but I mean, we want to be fair and balanced here. I mean, he does have a tough job, and I do admit that some of the things that have happened are unfortunate. I don't agree with some of the stuff he's done, but at the same time, he is faced with a very difficult job here, and so are some of the other officers. So what proof do you have that actually there is this that is biased?
The scope records can be acquired. If you go down to the new Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department headquarters, it's at the corner of Alta and Martin Luther King. Right. There is a records department there. You can go in and order for any event that occurred at your home, right, and you can read what scope has. Again, Steve makes an excellent point. Sometimes, like in my case, they would not turn over one of the records. I had to actually go to the mayor at the time was Oscar Goodman. I actually had to go and speak during the general comment section of a city council meeting to get my police report. These police reports cannot be withheld from anyone involved in the crime. And so the proof is you can get the record yourself.
Okay.
Well, let's take a caller. We have a caller on the air. Caller?
Hi, this is Karen in Las Vegas.
Hey, Karen, how you doing? You have a question?
Actually, I have a comment about the whole Gillespie stepping down as sheriff, and I have some information, too. And first, I'd like to say that I want to be the first one to sign your petition. If you do, go forward with it. And I believe that Gillespie should step down because, like you said, he was sworn to uphold the laws of our community and protect our community. And he's got a career since 2007 of not doing that. He's not protecting the community. He's being a politician. He started lots and lots of organizations for children's causes and, goes to lots of press releases, press conferences, and makes lots of statements, but he's not doing anything for the community. In fact, it seems like they have 2,700 officers policing 1.3 million people, and he's got this brand new SWAT team down here and the Homeland Security office down here and the FBI office down here, and he's making a great name for himself, but what's he doing for us?
You know, that's a valid point, because I remember I was asking some officers how they feel about the new headquarters building, and a lot of them really don't like it, because they said that if he could go ahead and have tax incentive to build a headquarters building, he should be able to provide them with their bulletproof vests. And a lot of the officers that I spoke to said that they had to pay for their own bulletproof vests, which I think is unsat. It's like our troops paying for their own stuff overseas to serve our country in time of war.
And actually be able to wear shorts when it's 115 degrees outside.
And let's go back to the Eric Scott case. The Metropolitan Police Department never did release the 911 tapes, and they said that the video from Costco was damaged. And they never did release the police reports or any other evidence in that case. And they only had the case tried in a coroner's inquest, where no other information was allowed in and none of the witnesses were cross-examined. What kind of crap is that?
I thought the coroner's inquest has been delayed.
No, it was decided sometime earlier this year. I can't remember exactly, but it's been decided. The coroner's inquest is done, and it wasn't in the news. Didn't you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that. What about the Travis Cole case, the one that got shot in the face while he was in bed?
Oh, his last statement was that if Trevor Cole had done what the police had ordered him to do, he'd still be alive.
You know something? That brings me to this valid point, because I remember listening to Doug Gillespie's news conference, and he said that his officers was trying to get Stanley Gibson out of his car for 27 minutes. So what does that mean? At the 28th minute, it's time to execute your ass? Who says that police officers are judge, jury, and executioner? When did that happen? Did something in the Constitution change? Because you could take a man's life or a woman's life after a certain amount of time of negotiation. Then it's time to stop talking and start killing. Even the president doesn't even make that decision, and he has the power to do it.
Unbelievable. And I was looking it up while you were talking. The coroner's inquest was finalized on September 28th, 2010, more than a year ago, and nobody has mentioned a thing about it.
Dan?
But I'd also like to mention that the Las Vegas Review-Journal in last November, November 27th, just a few days ago, or a month ago or so, did a year-long study on the Metropolitan Police Department, and we're third in the nation for police violence. Be proud of that.
Karen, you're very informative. Just to give you some insight, I did watch the inquest. It was broadcast on either Channel 2 or Channel 4 when they were still made available to the public, but it was not broadcast on local media. Something I'd just like to bring to your attention, Karen, and to any of the listeners out there. The Fiscal Affairs Committee meets for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And the Fiscal Affairs Committee is made up of members of the Clark County Commission and members of the Las Vegas City Council. It is our sales tax dollars and our property tax dollars that support Metro. Now, Metro also gets grant money, but it's our tax dollars that are going to support Metro and its policies and procedures. There is a public comment section at the end of the Fiscal Affairs meeting, and they're very short meetings. They usually last anywhere from a half an hour to an hour. They're on usually the last Monday of the month, and you can call, if anyone has paper and pencil, write down 828-3111 and ask, that's an information number for Metro. Ask when the Fiscal Affairs meeting is, and they rotate between the Clark County Commissioners' Chambers and the City of Las Vegas Chambers.
You know something? I've been asking Sheriff Gillespie to start having his officers train and to recognize PTSD. And first, I was getting Deputy Chief of the Clark County Detention Center, Jim Dixon, and then Jim Dixon was promoted to undersheriff, which the sheriff brought back because he got rid of that position for some time, and he brought back the position of undersheriff, and Jim Dixon was promoted to undersheriff. And I went and visited Jim Dixon in the new headquarters bill and talking about the recognition of his officers for PTSD. And apparently Jim Dixon gave me the new CCDC, Clark County Detention Center chief, and his name escapes me. And then we were supposed to meet, and then I end up talking to Captain Frank Regan, about the recognition of CCDC, the officers being educated as far as PTSD is concerned. But I was told that the only ones that know anything about post-traumatic stress disorder, that's wearing a uniform and a gun and a badge, or a crisis awareness unit. And I was also told that the recognition of PTSD, that class, is just basically voluntarily. That means an officer does not have to take the class. I think what Metro needs to do now is to make it mandatory that every single officer coming on the force and on the force already currently be trained to recognize post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's an epidemic that's going to take control by our troops coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and PTSD is broader than just combat troops. It's also people that have experienced terrible situations, people that have experienced rape, or people that have experienced murder, so PTSD is on a broad scope. So I just don't understand, why is it that it's voluntary for Metropolitan Police Department officers to go through a course to recognize PTSD, because PTSD has been around ever since man was born.
Well, Steve, you make an excellent point. I am a nurse, and I have done training as well as have done internships in this matter of post-traumatic stress disorder. It's certainly gained more popularity since the war, but I think the medical field does an injustice by calling this a disorder. People are traumatized. You see someone out in the field when you're in battle get blown up. You're traumatized. I don't think it necessarily has to be categorized as a disorder. The DSM, that's the diagnostic manual that doctors use and psychiatrists use, it can clarify whether this is a disorder or someone who's simply been traumatized and just needs counseling. I think a lot of these veterans feel that if they are put into a category of having a disorder, they're going to be treated differently than if they just suck it up and not get any counseling and not get any help. Another point I wanted to make is the fact that in post-traumatic stress disorder, you're correct, there is a crisis unit that is called out when there are people that are suffering from that. You may remember Metro was called to a home here recently off of Tropicana. A young man by the name of Dusty, his last name escapes me. He was a bit overweight, and he was in his home, in his backyard, and the police chose to use excessive force on him to get him to obey their commands, and the excessive force resulted in his being asphyxiated and dying.
So, Deanne, just so we can be fair and balanced here, as a nurse, if you've been trained to, or not necessarily trained, but you understand PTSD, how would you expect an officer that has not had the ability to be able to actually interview or sit down with that individual, say necessarily sitting or standing outside of a car, how would they know that that individual has PTSD? How would they? I mean, it's kind of fair to expect an officer to be able to diagnose PTSD when they feel that their life is in danger.
Well, I think the word miscommunication sums up what you're talking about. Someone in the home will know that. Someone will call the police. Police are at the home because someone called them. Someone in the home will know that. Now, if there's no one in the home, even someone can relay that.
That's a very good point, and that's exactly why I asked you that question, is because in this case, that actually did occur.
In Dusty's case, that is
Yes,
correct.
it did occur. So the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of listeners that aren't familiar with this situation would probably ask that question, but those officers did actually have that information.
And
that this was a veteran and was suffering from something like this, and then at the same time he wasn't really a threat. Anybody who watches that video knows that car was pinned in. There wasn't a threat there to the officers. And that was the point I was trying to make.
And why wasn't the crisis unit brought in? If, as Steve made an excellent point, at the 28th minute, it then became lethal. Why wasn't the crisis unit called?
And you know something, and it goes way beyond that. It also talks about the Veteran Administration should be held liable for this also, because they're the one that canceled this guy's appointment to get his prescription, and the cops had their opportunity to hold Stanley Gibson because they arrested him prior to that day he was executed. And I use that word executed because the officer fired 7 rounds into the back of the car, shooting the guy in the head. And that officer that did that isn't a coward. That officer is a coward. So if you're listening to me out there, you're a coward. You don't fire 7 rifle shots while you're standing outside of a vehicle and shooting into the rear of the vehicle, and there was no weapon shown. There was no gun. There was no knife. There was not even a slingshot shown to say this officer was in danger. How do you shoot somebody in the back of their head? How do you do that? If you want to shoot somebody, you shoot them to their face while they have a gun drawn on you. That's when you shoot them, not in the back of their head. That officer is a coward. And if they bring him back to the force, that says a whole lot about the leadership of Sheriff Doug Gillespie. But speaking of that, we also have the district attorney who's stepping down. And he's stepping down on January 1st. Now, the public needs to, and the county commissioners are the ones that's going to appoint a new district attorney that's going to serve them all the way out to 2014, if my memory serves me correctly. The public needs to go in front of the county commissioner and let them know what they're looking for in a district attorney.
Steve, were you aware that the panel that is formed to present the candidates to the county commissioners are all attorneys? Many of them, the majority of them, are former DAs. And this is outrageous. This is unbelievable. Why aren't we citizens? We who feel the wrath of the DA's office, why aren't we part of that panel? Why aren't we who have the potential to advise the commissioners of what is going on in this county that for some reason is not getting to them? They're just not getting it.
Deanne, I can, if you don't mind me interrupting for a second, I could pretty much tell you exactly why. Number one, most citizens are not active. They don't vote. They haven't raised that same question that you just asked. And the turnout for almost all local elections is next to nothing. That's the reason why.
But you know what? If any one of those county commissioners would have called me up, or even the county manager, and would have asked me if I would want to be a part of this panel, I would say absolutely.
But you're the exception, not the rule, Steve.
But it's also up to the county commissioners and the county manager,
right, to
reach out.
Right.
I mean, everybody know that there's certain people that are layperson that's not an attorney are out there fighting for different rights and stuff like that. So if they would have reached out to me or say, hey, Steve, do you know anybody that would be more than happy to sit on this panel that's a non-attorney? Could you give us their name and number? I would gladly provide at least a dozen names and numbers for them.
That's a good point.
So that's also needs to be brought up as well. And something, Deanne, district attorney should not under any circumstances be the lead investigative force behind officer involved shooting. I'm sorry. That has to be the job of a minimum the Attorney General's office or some type of neutral party that from another state or even the federal government to intervene in all police involved shootings, so that we know as citizens that there is a fair and impartial panel out there that's looking into the best interests of both parties, the police and the citizens at large. And another thing, officers out there, I have a lot of police friends out there, and I just want to make it known that we are not saying that the Metropolitan Police Department is a bad police department. We're not saying that every officer out there that risks their lives for a community to keep us safe or bad officers. What we're saying is that the leadership has to go. Basically, the leadership has to go, and any leadership that follows that same suit has to go. And leadership starts at the top. So if you are the sheriff of the Metropolitan Police Department, that's the leadership I'm talking about. And every leadership that follows that leadership has to go, because if you are the undersheriff, or if you are a deputy chief of SWAT, or a deputy chief of the Clark County Detention Center, and you don't stand up and say, Sheriff, this is wrong, and this is unjust, and this is this is not right, and this is against protocol. If you don't stand up and say those things, then you got to go too.
I agree, Steve. And as we're winding down here, hopefully maybe we could go look into comments by commissioners that they have made regarding the DA. And this is a little known secret, but the DA actually legally counsels Metro on what to do. And in my particular case, a child abuse case. So we can investigate some more things if we have time after the break.
Well, Jim? I want to thank you very much, Deanne, for coming in. And just one last thing, thank you for Kevin Childs not showing up, because yeah, he's a jerk.
Deanne, do you have any point of contact? Phone number?
Yes.
Website, maybe?
Yes. There's no website, but there is a phone number, 702-787-0002. And when you call in, if you get voicemail, simply leave your name and number, and you will get a call back. If you do not get a call back, it will be because the message was not clear. So please keep calling until you get a call back.
And I think we left Karen on the line. Is she still on the line? No, she's gone. All right, well, I'd like to thank the caller for calling in, and I'd like to thank you, Deanne, for coming down and talking to us about this very sensitive matter. And I hope that this program is a little bit of an eye-opener. And, folks, just because you have a badge and a gun, that does not make you right. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics.